them, I've got to come over and see the fake news. Let's go.
If you hold down the woman while the rapist is raping her, and you didn't rape her, are you a rapist? I mean, let's just really, let's cut the BS and start speaking honestly. If you vote for a man who says what he said today, that the white nationalists were the victims, that he equated George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Robert E. Lee, and said that the people that are trying to stop the racism, the anti-racism protesters, that they were the violent ones. They were the, you know, it just went so far. I'm telling you,
that's a very powerful and comfortable anecdote that you share, and people will think that you're comparing Trump voters to racists. I mean, to rapists.
Yeah,
and
it's uncomfortable, isn't it?
That is uncomfortable.
Yeah, because enablers of immoral behavior, of criminal behavior, it is absolutely criminal to stand behind the people that killed Heather Heyer, that beat the heads in of people who were trying to, you know, speak their minds in Charlottesville. If you are there, if you participate, even though you're not the actual person doing it, if you help to put Donald Trump in office, you need to think about this before you kneel down and say your prayers tonight. Think about this person that you now have leading this country. And there is redemption in this. You can stop tomorrow morning. You can stop supporting him, and you can say, I can't take anymore, and this was probably a mistake, me voting for him, and you can change.
You know, you're
Michael Moore and Harvey Weinstein are set to team up for the first time since 2004's Fahrenheit 9/11 on a President Donald Trump documentary titled Fahrenheit 11/9. The film, directed by the liberal firebrand, refers to November 9th, 2016, the date that Trump became president-elect of the United States. Moore said, "No matter what you throw at Trump, it hasn't worked. No matter what is revealed, he remains standing. Facts, reality, brains cannot defeat him. Even when he commits a self-inflicted wound, he gets up the next morning and keeps going and tweeting. That all ends with this movie." According to Weinstein, "There is no greater part of what we can do right now than to have the power to bring Michael Moore to a mass audience." He added, "We are ecstatic to be a part of this revolution." Weinstein and Moore announced the deal at Cannes, where the Weinstein Company will be introducing the film to buyers.
These people are sick.
But tonight we start on November the 8th, 2016. 62 million Americans, we the American people, you shocked the world, you voted for Donald Trump. He won a whopping 304 electoral votes. He carried over 30 states. And now Democrats are officially trying to flush that free and fair election down the toilet based on 0 high crimes, 0 misdemeanors, and 0 counts of bribery, and 0 counts of treason. This is what we've gotten for 3 long years. Just 2 made-up, baseless, weak, factless charges that would never be allowed in a court of law. This charade boils down to one thing and one thing only. And that is the left, liberals, Democrats, socialists, and their media mob friends. They think that they know better than we, the people that voted for this president. Now, they look down their noses at us. Fine. They have contempt for our values, our views, and our life, and our way of life. They hate us, and they hate our choice for president. So for 3 years, 3 long years, they have desperately tried to undo an election and impeach Donald Trump. Don't take my word for it. Just listen to their dear, fearless leader, Speaker Pelosi, earlier this week. This is quite revealing. Take a look.
One of the biggest criticisms of the process has been the speed at which the House Democrats are moving. But seriously though,
It's been going on for 22 months, okay? It's been 2.5 years, actually.
These people are sick.
2.5 years since he got there. Rare moment of truth, even for Pelosi. Now, first, way back in January 2017, it was the Russia hoax in coordination with a corrupt, deceitful, propaganda, state-run, Democratic Socialist TV mob in the media. Democrats have lied over and over and over again about Trump and Russia and collusion. The only collusion was the dirty Russian dossier that Hillary paid for. Then you got the compromised, corrupt, congenital liar, Adam Schiff. Said he had ample and significant evidence of collusion. Then we had the Schiff show, now the Nutty Nadler Schiff show. By the way, he's now running his own full Schiff show. And he said there was collusion in plain sight, remember? Or Eric Swalwell. Oh, he did great in his run for the presidency, saying the president acts on Russia's behalf. Well, maybe it was Hillary who bought the Russian dossier. You got NBC News, chief conspiracy theorist. You got Area 51, Roswell Rachel Maddow, calling Trump a Russian op. Tom Brokaw, speak up. Are you proud of this? They were all lying through their teeth. 3 years, lies, misinformation, propaganda. They have smear, slander, besmirchment. This is who they are. This is what they do. 4 separate investigations found 0 evidence of Trump-Russia collusion. None. Zip. A huge blow to the Democrats' plan to impeach the president. They thought Mueller would get them over the finish line. So instead of apologizing for the years of lying to the country and putting the country through hell, well, they just simply move on to Plan B. Let's make up a new conspiracy theory. We'll call it the Ukrainian hoax. And now the election fast approaching. Democrats, they don't have any time to waste now. They can't rely on the American people to do their bidding. Take a look.
We cannot rely on an election to solve our problems when the president threatens the very integrity of that election. So, with a heavy heart, but clear in my duty to our country, I support these articles of impeachment. I urge my colleagues to support them as well.
All right, despite his heavy or nutty heart of Nadler, well, he's now racing to get this thing across the finish line. And of course, Pelosi announced that a vote will take place next week. For the past 10 straight hours, again today, Democrats in the House Judiciary Committee, they've been holding an all-day marathon. We got to get it done before Christmas hearing. In case you missed it, you learned absolutely nothing new all day. No new facts presented, no evidence introduced, no witnesses called. There's only been one fact witness. Everyone else hearsay or opinion. Instead, we hear from a bunch of Democratic lawmakers totally divorced from reality, living in the land of rage and hate and psychosis against Trump. One congressman comparing the impeachment charade actually to the civil rights and suffrage movements. Wow, they think a lot of themselves. Take a look.
Some will cynically argue that the impeachment of this president will further divide an already fractured union. Slavery once divided the nation, but emancipators rose up to clarify that all men are created equally. Suffrage once divided the nation, but women rose up to clarify that all voices must be heard in our democracy. Jim Crow once divided the nation, but civil rights champions rose up to clarify that all are entitled to equal protection under the law.
And all lies and all conspiracy theories have to be peddled. And as per usual, Democrats are clearly more interested in hyping up their own witch trial than actually getting to any truth or real justice, because the truth is not good for the Democratic Party. Take a look.
And this amendment strikes the reference to Joe Biden as the center of the proposed investigation and replaces it with the true topic of the investigation, Burisma and Hunter Biden. Hertz called the Prescott Police Department, and officers filed a narcotics offense report listing items seized in the car, including a plastic bag containing white powdery substance, a Secret Service business card, credit cards, and Hunter Biden's driver's license. It's a little hard to believe that Burisma hired Hunter Biden to resolve their international disputes when he could not resolve his own dispute with Hertz rental car over leaving cocaine and a crack pipe in the car.
Congressman Matt Gaetz advocating for an amendment to the Articles of Impeachment that would actually include language about Hunter Biden and, yeah, zero experience and the millions he's paid. Well, it's pretty simple. It was a quid and a pro and a quo by Joe and Hunter. Zero experience Hunter, of course, was selling his access to his father. That's the real evidence of real abuse of power, which they ignore. That Gaetz amendment was ultimately defeated along party lines, along with several other amendments. The American people, we know what's going on here. This is nothing but a partisan circus to undo an election. President Trump will never be convicted in the Senate. Senator Graham will dismiss, and Senator McConnell will dismiss these phony charges, and all the other Republican senators. Look at your screen. Look at these 31 Democrats from those districts that President Trump carried in 2016. See Nancy Pelosi? She is now making all of those lawmakers walk the plank for nothing, sacrificing those seats to placate a radical extreme socialist base. And now some of these lawmakers are starting to waffle and buckle under the pressure. Take a look.
Are you ready to vote for them?
No, what I'm going to do right now is do what I was always trained to do as a CIA officer, which is sit by myself with a full body of information.
The question going forward will be, are these lawmakers going to do Pelosi's bidding, or will they actually represent the people that hired them? Because their constituents are pretty ticked off about the Democrats' latest political stunt and the fact they do nothing. Take a look.
It's crap. It's a lie. It's all lies.
No one has to sell or sentenced to sell or provide evidence that would exonerate. Correct. That's really
Y'all be trying to impeach this man, but he got elected.
Americans across the country have every right to be angry tonight. Joining us now, Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz. People got mad at you, and then they attacked you back. All right, forget all of that. There's no evidence here. Just the opposite. We have one fact witness. Everyone else is hearsay and opinion, Matt. And this is where they take this country. 3 years of doing nothing for the people of this country.
You're right, Sean. Democrats have attacked President Trump, President Zelensky, and even me in this hearing, but what they haven't attacked are the facts and the law that show the president has done nothing wrong and should not be facing this illegitimate impeachment. Democrats have lost ground in the polls, and either they will lose votes on the floor tomorrow, or they are likely to lose the majority. That is because each and every time Democrats reference conduct that they believe is wrong or improper about the president, we are able to show a deeper understanding of why the president is fighting against corruption, using different tools to accomplish American foreign policy, and you know what? The results are in, and the American economy is thriving, the American experience is enhanced, and that's really what this is about.
How many Democrats, you talk to your colleagues, your friends, how many of them do you think defect?
Well, let's start with the standard that Nancy Pelosi set. Remember, she, Adam Schiff, and Jerry Nadler all said that an impeachment would have to be bipartisan. Right now, the only bipartisan support is bipartisan support against impeachment, not for impeachment.
Matt,
They've already lost 2. They could even lose more tomorrow.
They already dove out of the plane. How many Democrats are going to say, you know what, you walk the plank alone, this is idiotic and political suicide?
You should see all 31 Democrats in the Trump districts opposing this impeachment and working with us to try to make America great again. Instead, there is a pep rally environment among some House Democrats where they're going to act against their constituents, against their own political interests, because the radical left has taken over the narrative in Washington, D.C. in the House Democratic Caucus. I do, though, Sean, believe that Democrats could actually lose more support than even previously. And what's interesting about that is that they told us so many times that once they had public hearings, once they put witnesses before the American people, that somehow this would fundamentally shift the polling, and you know what? It hasn't. Democrats are right where they've always been, and the majority of the American people do not support this impeachment, and you know what? They're going to hold it against the Democrats who continue to advance this cause.
All right, Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz, thank you. Joining us now is Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell is with us, and his memoir, by the way, is entitled The Long Game. It includes a new foreword by President Trump and it's now out in paperback. Senator, good to see you. Welcome back to the program. It's been a while. I want to find out about the new forward. I think most people don't fully understand. Let's assume for a minute that the House goes forward with this impeachment, and it's over to the Senate. Walk us through how this process works and the options available, and what you see happening and how you see this going down.
First, as you've pointed out to your viewers, frequently the Democrats have been wanting to do this for 3 years. The first headline of the Washington Post before the president was inaugurated was they were going to impeach him. Well, they finally got around to it, and we assume we're going to see 2 articles of impeachment, both of them pretty weak stuff, coming over to us, and your question is what happens then? Under the rules of impeachment, the Senate then turns to it, has no option but to turn to it, and it's the sole business until we finish. How we can impact that really is just with 51 votes. The Chief Justice is in the chair. I don't expect the Chief Justice to try to tilt the playing field either way. We'll listen to the opening arguments by the House prosecutors. They will listen to the president's lawyers respond, and then we'll have to make a decision about the way forward. And everything I do during this, I'm coordinating with White House counsel. There will be no difference between the president's position and our position as to how to handle this to the extent that we can. We don't have the kind of ball control on this that a typical issue, for example, comes over to the House. If I don't like it, we don't take it up. We have no choice but to take it up, but we'll be working through this process, hopefully in a fairly short period of time, in total coordination with the White House counsel's office and the people who are representing the president in the well of the Senate.
So I have got to believe that the federal rules for the admission of evidence would apply here with the Chief Justice in charge, and that would mean there would be no hearsay evidence be allowed, and that would probably mean, well, you might have 1 or 2 opinion people, fact or experts, but when we watch this process unfold in the House, especially in the Schiff show, everyone was a hearsay or an opinion witness. The one fact witness said, oh, the president said he wants nothing, no quid pro quo. That was the only fact witness that I saw. So that would be Ambassador Sondland. Would that be, in your view, how the federal rules of evidence would apply here?
Well, exactly how we go forward, I'm going to coordinate with the president's lawyers. So there won't be any difference between us on how to do this. You raised the issue of what if you have witnesses. The president's counsel may or may not decide they want to have witnesses. The case is so darn weak coming over from the House. We all know how it's going to end. There's no chance the president's going to be removed from office. My hope is that there won't be a single Republican who votes for either of these articles of impeachment. And Sean, it wouldn't surprise me if we got 1 or 2 Democrats. It looks to me over in the House, the Republicans seem to be solid and the Democrats seem to be divided.
Well, I think you rightly point out this is very weak. I mean, we'll look, for example, at the obstruction issue. So here, the president, like every other past president, has exerted executive privilege. Okay, they don't like it when there is a dispute between the legislative branch and the executive branch. Well, that would be the role of the judicial branch, which is to resolve the disputes between the other 2 branches of government. But apparently they're in such a rush to do this that they didn't want to give the courts any time, or perhaps even worse, they feared what the courts would decide.
Yeah, well, this is a thoroughly political exercise. It's not like a courtroom experience. It's a political exercise. They've been trying to do this for 3 years. They finally screwed up their courage to do it. It looks to me like it may be backfiring on them, particularly in swing districts that the Speaker's party managed to win in order to get to the majority. Most of the nervousness I see on this issue with the politicians, since it's a political process, is on the Democratic side.
So you will allow, let's assume it comes over to the Senate. You're obligated to take it up. I think everybody understands that. Right. Whoever the House chooses to present their case, they will present their case, however long period of time that takes. There is some dispute, and actually I could probably be persuaded on either side, which for me is a rare thing, Senator, and that would be, okay, a lot of people would like to bring in Adam Schiff, Hunter Biden, Joe Biden. I think I'm more inclined to agree with Senator Graham on this. It's tempting, and I do believe that all of those things must be looked into. There are a lot of real questions here. But I don't know if that would be the appropriate forum once you would have the 51 votes at that point to end this, which, again, very weak case. I think it would be smart to do so. Where would your inclination be?
Yeah, again, I'm going to take my cues from the president's lawyers. But yes, if you know you have the votes, you've listened to the arguments on both sides, and believe the case is so slim, so weak, is that you have the votes to end it. That might be what the president's lawyers would prefer, and you can certainly make a case for making it shorter rather than longer, since it's such a weak case.
Okay, are you confident? So we talked about, for example, the obstruction charge, and the other one will be the abuse of power charge. You've read the phone call. You've watched, I'm sure, a lot of the coverage that has taken place in the House. Do you see any evidence of any wrongdoing whatsoever on the president's part? As you read that transcript, I read it over and over again. I certainly don't see what we hear Joe Biden bragging about. You're not getting $1 billion taxpayer dollars unless you fire the prosecutor he knew was investigating his son with zero experience making millions. That didn't happen.
Well, this is a really weak case, and that's why I think you're going to see bipartisan opposition to the articles over in the House.
We choose truth over facts.
How long do you think, and we'll move on from here, how long would you imagine after the House presents its case, and that will happen in full?
Well, look, if they do it this next week, Sean, we will be able to get consent to go home for Christmas. So we would turn to it right around the first of the year, and we would stay on it until we finish. And my hope is that it will be a shorter process rather than a lengthy process.
So you have your book.
Yeah.
And look, Donald Trump is a lot of things, and I probably have known him maybe longer than you, well over 20 some odd years. He's a disruptor. He's an iconoclast. He is a fighter. He's also gotten a lot of good things done for the country. He kept a lot of promises with your help on judges, tax cuts. Certainly, he's got the money for the wall, ending burdensome regulation, better trade deals. Baghdadi's dead, the caliphate defeated. What have you learned over this time with the president now, almost 3 years, that maybe you didn't know?
Well, let me tell you what this book is about. This book is about the most long-lasting contribution that Donald Trump and Senate Republicans have made for the country. And that is putting young men and women who are strict constructionists, who believe the job of the judge is to follow the law, on the courts. We did our 50th Circuit Court judge just yesterday. Sean, to put that in perspective, Barack Obama did 55 circuit judges in 8 years. We've done 50 in 3 years, and we have at least a year left for sure. We're going to do more. 1/4 of the circuit judges, remember, most cases don't make it to the Supreme Court. Most complex litigation never makes it beyond the circuit courts. This has been the most long-lasting, important contribution the president could make well into the future, far beyond his tenure in office. So we'll have a judiciary more inclined not to make it up on the fly. You know, President Obama said he wanted to appoint judges who had empathy. Well, you know, that makes great sense if you're the litigant before the judge, for whom the judge has empathy. Not so good if you aren't.
These people are sick.
Let's talk about the issue has come up. Let's say somebody were to retire at the end of this year, leading into the summer. You have been very clear, if the president appointed somebody, you would follow through on that nomination.
Absolutely. We definitely would do that. And this paperback that we were just talking about, the president's foreword is about judges. My afterword catches up what's happened during the Trump administration on judges, because my memoir came out 3 years ago before the president was elected. What we've done here, the president and I together with this paperback that you've shown on the screen, is to talk about how the Judge Project came about, how it went forward. If you can recall, Sean, the most important decision I've made in my entire political career was not to fill the Supreme Court vacancy when Justice Scalia passed away. That was the beginning, and now we've got an exclamation point here after 3 years that we thought the public would be interested in reading about, and that's why the President and I collaborated on this paperback.
I was shocked that former President Obama left so many vacancies and didn't try to fill those positions.
I'll tell you why. I was in charge of the of what we did the last 2 years of the Obama administration.
I will give you full credit for that. And by the way, take a bow. All right, that was a good line. Well, congratulations on the book. We'll be watching, obviously, very closely in the Senate. Do you see any possible defections?
I doubt it. There's a zero chance the president obviously would be removed from office, and I'm hoping we'll have no defections at all.
All right, Senator Mitch McConnell, thank you for being with us. So the revealing, stunning Horowitz Inspector General report cemented James Comey's legacy of disgrace, legacy of failure. We now know with certainty Comey lied a lot about FISA abuse, claiming, that's a bunch of nonsense, and claiming that the dossier did not form the basis for the warrant against Carter Page to 1-2 step into all-world Trump. These facts are now undeniable. He lied, and Comey, he still has a lot of questions to answer, questions that will expose him as overseeing a derelict and what is amounting to an upper echelon of corrupt FBI so-called leaders. For example, how do you justify signing the warrant that purposefully omitted all the exculpatory evidence? How do you justify in this whole process doctoring key material and still using it to keep a phony investigation going? Verified. Remember, you signed 3 of them. How do you justify and proudly proclaim your vindication on Monday when you have 17 failures and over 50, if you look at the subnotes, inaccuracies and failures relating to this warrant? How do you justify signing a warrant when the material, the vast majority of information in the application is unverifiable and there's no so-called evidence? How do you justify then using the Clinton dirty Russian dossier she paid for as a central and essential part of the FISA application? Because we now know if you didn't have the dirty dossier and you didn't use it, you weren't getting the FISA warrant. And then how do you justify renewing the FISA warrant 3 times, still no verifiable information and no valuable information corrected? How do you justify in between signing 1 and 2 and 3, you tell Trump it's unverified but salacious? And by the way, can we get a straight answer? When did you first learn about the dossier? Did you ever take any steps at all to verify the dossier? Because it seems you did nothing. Do you still believe, as you've been telling us, that dirty Clinton bought and paid for Russian dossier had credible intelligence in it? Because if you do, you're the only one believing your own lies. We know the FBI, we know you relied on the dirty Clinton bought and paid for Russian dossier to get the warrant to spy on Carter so you could 1-2 step into the Trump campaign transition and then deep into his presidency, when everything suggested the opposite. You've lied repeatedly. Will you ever admit that the FISA process was abused and you abused it? It all happened on your watch.
We choose truth over facts.
How did the Steele dossier wind up in the intelligence community assessment? Can you tell us that? When did you talk to Brennan? Did you talk to Brennan? Did you talk to Clapper? And by the way, what were the nature of those conversations? I'd also like to know, what did Barack Obama know? What did Joe Biden know? What did Susan Rice know? Or any other top official in the Obama administration? What did they know and when did they know it? Isn't it abuse of power to alter evidence, hide exculpatory evidence, and use unverifiable evidence in a FISA court application to spy on Americans? Because you've been silent about all this so far. And this rampant abuse and illegal surveillance, it all happened on your watch. And you act like you've done nothing wrong. Why do you refuse to take responsibility? By the way, a lot of people, that lacked candor, like Horowitz says you did, a lot of people that lie to courts, they go to jail all the time. Why do you get a special pass? pass, get out of jail free card. The day of reckoning is on the horizon, Mr. Comey. I've been warning you. You have the right to remain silent. I suggest you use it. Joining us, Fox News contributors Dan Bongino, Sarah Carter, Jason Chaffetz. Jason, I'd say I wouldn't want to be James Comey's lawyer today.
No, that's a good list of questions. I would add a few to that, Sean. I would ask, where do people go to get a refund on that book? I'd also like to know, when he said that he doesn't do sneaky things, he doesn't leak, and he doesn't do weasel moves, how can he justify that? And I want to know how he handpicked the Crossfire Hurricane team, the same people that worked on the Clinton email team. There are 110,000 people at the Department of Justice. How come he handpicked those people to work on this with Trump? He is so dirty, this guy. I do hope he ends up in handcuffs.
These people are sick. Sarah, I'll let you go next, but I got to tell you something. This is even worse than we thought. The level of deception and lying, he just outright lied to the country. Oh, no, this was not, that never happened. He was lying through his teeth. Then he tells Trump something totally different.
Well, that's right, Sean, and even when they're caught, they don't even admit to the truth. But this isn't the first time. And remember, this is the same James Comey who, with Robert Mueller, accused Stephen Hatfield in the anthrax case. They accused an innocent man. He even went before a judge and said, no, I'm absolutely certain this is the guy. I'm absolutely certain this is the guy. And it wasn't the guy. This is the same man who went to Alberto Gonzales and made this big speech about how he rushed to the hospital when Alberto Gonzales in 2004.
A higher loyalty.
Yeah, a higher loyalty, and that he was going to save America from this unwarranted surveillance. And guess what happened? He did the same thing but worse to Carter Page.
Dan, only for the constraints of time.
Sean, listen, the most devastating Jim Comey takeaway is no later than January of 2017, Jim Comey's FBI knows with absolute certainty that Christopher Steele's dossier sources are bogus because they talk to the subsources who tell them this information is garbage, it's beer talk. And Comey's FBI authorizes the spying on an innocent American citizen 3 more times. Not only that, the 7 misstatements in the initial FISA, they add back those 7 lies and misstatements in the 3 renewals, and they add 10 more lies in the 3 renewals, knowing it's all bogus.
The only thing I have hope in at this point is now we have a real criminal investigation with serious people, and that would be Barr and Durham. Thank you all.
I'm Laura Ingram. This is the Ingram Angle back in Washington tonight. Now, before we begin our analysis of this farce of an impeachment, I don't know, excuse me, I'm coughing because I can't believe it's still going on on Capitol Hill. It's going till, 4 in the morning. There was another event that shows the enduring power of the movement Donald Trump created. Economic nationalism, sovereignty, independence from international bureaucracies, and controlling one's own destiny. Well, that movement is sweeping through the UK tonight, where the globalist anti-Brexit Labour Party is on track to suffer a resounding defeat in parliamentary elections, making the UK's exit from the EU a certainty. Now, just like the elites in our own country, the ones who want Trump out, the elites in Britain believe that they know better than the voters. The globalists worked for 3.5 years to try to turn public opinion against Brexit. Remember, they voted for Brexit in a referendum. Well, guess what? The elites failed miserably. Now, this also means that Donald Trump will soon have yet another trade success on his hands. His administration will proceed to strike its own deal, a bilateral one, with Britain. Excellent news for the U.S. economy. It's going to be great news for Britain. Here's hoping that the results of this UK vote presage Trump's re-election as the original Brexit vote did the first time around. You see a Boris-Trump friendship like Thatcher-Reagan, not exactly the same, but very interesting how we have this similar track. And now, you're looking live at the Judiciary Committee as it continues to debate articles of impeachment against President Trump. This has been a complete joke all day long, and we expect an actual vote on whether the committee will send this to the full floor any moment. So stay with us, we'll bring it right to you.
And the only cure for that Trump derangement syndrome is 4 more years.
After Democrats recaptured the House majority in 2018, Nancy Pelosi became the most powerful woman in Washington. Some said that she was too old, that the party needed to trade up for a newer model, but she sure showed them. At 79 years of age, she remains the only woman to ever hold the position of Speaker of the House, let alone hold it 2 separate times.
She's now a historic speaker. This may be seen as the Pelosi age in the Democratic Party. She is the glue keeping the whole Washington scene together.
That was a few months back. Do you think that still holds? But a year ago, come on, she seemed unstoppable. And the grande dame of a powerful newly elected group of female lawmakers who are as mad as hell and weren't going to take it anymore.
Once upon a time, there were women, and then they became fed up women, and then they became congresswomen. They fight crime, they right wrongs, they wear white, but they're not all white, and we love them. They're the women of Congress. Featuring Nancy Madam Clapback Pelosi.
I can't close my eyes.
She's so woke, she can't close her eyes. Sorry, I had to have water for that. All year long, she's been a woman on a very difficult mission. Resist Trump without appearing to be unreasonable, and resist the radicals in her own party without alienating them at the ballot box. If she went too far either way, she could blow her party's chances for 2020. And time after time on issues big and small, the Beltway press and key Democrats praised her finesse, her power, and her style, and even her body language.
Ridiculous partisan investigations. We have just heard that Mexican cities, cooperation, compromise, and the common good.
On that infamous clapback.
I mean, look at that. That's the way you clap when your husband finally puts the toilet paper on the roller. You learn. Look at you.
So condescending. But they poured on the praise, heaped on the praise, including on her handling of the government shutdown. Director Rob Reiner called her a strong, brilliant, experienced public servant. Joe Biden clearly agreed, at least when Nancy seemed to have AOC +3 in check.
I think Nancy is masterful. I think I heard someone criticize Nancy for not being liberal enough. I mean,
Come on, man. Well, Pelosi even won plaudits for the sheer strength of her pointing, as in this now infamous photo during an October meeting with the president at the White House. Her feminist pals and media boosters went absolutely gaga over it.
First, can we just do one more beat on that photo? I mean, look at that photo of one woman standing up and, you know, giving it to the President of the United States at a table with all men there.
With Pelosi on her feet alone, you're absolutely right, in that room, in the red dress, all I could think of was Pence is involved in a lot of this murky stuff, too. And third in line is the speaker. Be still my heart.
These people are sick.
Be still my heart. Did she say she had a red dress? Must have been a different color pattern here in the studio. But Nancy's theatrics don't stop with pointing. She walks away, and then she comes back, too.
I don't hate anybody. I don't have to raise in a Catholic house. We don't hate anybody. Not anybody in the world. Don't mess with me.
I've never seen any member of Congress ever leave a room full of tough Capitol Hill reporters in stunned silence.
Ooh. Here's the problem. By getting sucked into impeachment, though, against her better judgment, Nancy Pelosi also walked away from common sense. Now, at times of the last few weeks, even the last month, she looked like her body was actually rejecting impeachment like a bad organ transplant.
I have no message to them. We're not whipping this legislation, nor do we ever whip something like this. People have to come to their own conclusions. They've seen the facts as presented at in the Intelligence Committee. They've seen the Constitution as they know it. They take an oath to protect and defend it, but they see the constitutional experts speak about it. They'll make their own decisions. I don't say anything to them.
Wait a second. It's incontrovertible evidence of an impeachable offense. But they can do what they want. I'm not going to talk to them about it. I'm not going to whip these votes. Odd. And now, a year after accomplishing nothing of substance except her support this week, after over a year for USMCA, Pelosi's future is suddenly not looking so bright. Polls show lowest support ever for impeaching this president, and the swing state outlook polls horrendous for the Democrats on that same issue. The economy's soaring. The market was up 220 points at the closing bell today. Trump's looking also very confident. Of course, USMCA has finally done progress, big progress, with China. His approval numbers haven't been affected at all by impeachment. His numbers for handling the economy, about 53%. He seems positively ebullient, whether he's doing events for school choice, or whether he's fighting anti-Semitism, or just representing us, that's all, at NATO. Meanwhile, Nancy's party, they're up on Capitol Hill right now, and they're floundering. They're desperately trying to make people care about impeachment, even though she doesn't care enough to whip the votes for it. But reality is beginning to sink in.
If you're just looking at those independent voters, the polls do not look good for the Democrats.
What struck me about this hearing was how Donald Trump, in a way, has already won.
Wow. Is there a plan B here? Does San Fran Grand Nan have a rescue strategy ready to deploy?
This is a very sad time for our country. We have to be very prayerful.
And that's the angle.
Facts, they no longer matter to the left. Truth doesn't matter. Reason, common sense doesn't matter. It's all Trump derangement syndrome every second hour of every 24-hour day, and the levels are shocking and disturbing.
And the only cure for that Trump derangement syndrome is 4 more years.
We choose truth over facts.
These people are sick.